The following video contains content some viewers might find disturbing. The views and opinions expressed here are not facts and are nothing more than entertainment. The views and opinions are not facts and do not represent the views and opinions of Xirtus or our channel, and do not necessarily represent or reflect the views of the guests, YouTube, Google, mainstream media, society, or civilization at large, or anybody. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everybody, how's it going? So it's a crazy week. I don't know if you've heard. I'm sorry, I'm like upset. Have you heard of the Restrict Act? You know what I'm talking about?
Familiar.
So it started out, everyone said, let's just ban TikTok. And I was for all that. You know, I don't really, I'm not that for it because I don't like the idea of banning anything. Because isn't the irony that TikTok bans people? So they want to ban TikTok, you know, whatever. But they want to make a bill that will restrict you for if you use a VPN, they can arrest you and you can go to jail for 20 years if you used a VPN. So it's scary because they're locking you down so much more than ever before. But like literally, it would be a criminal matter, like you're being an imposter by using terminals somewhere else. Like you're breaking and entering into a state. It's kind of like borders, you know, this idea of borders.
Well, what do you have to hide, Andreas? You're hiding something.
So let's say I want to watch British Netflix, right? So I log into British VPN.
Cool Indian cinema. Yeah,
There's a lot of stuff you can't see here. You go to the Canadian Netflix. There's like Degrassi that's not on this one. Let's say you're in Europe and you want to watch your American Netflix that you paid for, right? So then you have to log into an American VPN because they don't want to let Europeans watch the things you've contractually let. These are just simple ones,
but that's against terms of service. I'm gonna have to report you to the Netflix community.
Man,
excuse me, sir, are you using a VPN?
Yeah,
no,
I was also banning TikTok too, man. But then, of course, the government's like they take something a lot of people support, and it's like, oh, how can we pass all this Orwellian bullshit with it? But I still would love to get TikTok banned. But if that was the only thing to happen, and not create a whole new, what are they like comparing it to like a new digital Patriot Act or something?
Yes,
like that?
yes,
Patriot Act on steroids is what you know, Ron Paul called it. So, new restrict act could be 20 years in prison for using a VPN to access banned apps. TikTok has been in the news several times. Cybersecurity, blah blah blah. So it just seems like everything's always let's focus on something we all can hate together. There's a lot of propaganda about TikTok. Then we'll see, the act to ban TikTok, but that's trying to slip through all this other crazy stuff. So we should never pass a law ever. Because
conservatives got tricked into, we have to ban TikTok. This is this huge issue. The entire degradation of our culture is due to TikTok all of a sudden. So let's give the government the ability to create new powers around commerce for themselves and to start banning private industry.
I just wanted to piss off all the dumbass kids dancing, give them something to be angry about.
I
just hate TikTok. I'm a hater.
When it comes to this act and the entire internet, it's like easy come, easy go. We did nothing to earn the internet. It's like an us and them thing. Like they made the internet. It's kind of their thing. We're just enjoying it, but we didn't do anything to earn it. It's mostly free. You know what I mean? All these social media sites are free. So it's like easy come, easy go,
I remember Vine being slightly more highbrow, so I don't know, but
the comedy on Vine was peak NBC comedy. Yes.
God, let me introduce some of our guests. So actually, Mr. Douglas, it's good to have you here. How have you been this week?
Pleasure to be here. Thank you very much. You make my week extra special, Andreas, and everybody here with you. I gotta do a shout out. A chat here. I've just been reading a lot of what chat has had to say, and they are hilarious. It's a pleasure to be here with you, chat. You guys are great. I just love your names. Your names are very funny. So, dude, it's pleasure to be here. Yeah.
Keeping up with the chat also, Seth from Venice Beach Dub Club. How are you doing right now?
Doing great, man. I had a studio day yesterday, just still busy working on this full album for this summer, and it's going really well.
What's the song you were working on yesterday called or about?
Oh, I worked on 4 different songs yesterday. One called I Love the Herb. I don't know if I should give away all the titles. That one's got a good famous feature on it. Was working on one called Twisted Steel. So I don't want to give away too much. I can't give away all the titles. I Love the Herb is going to be a good one for people who love the herb.
Timeless.
Mark, what do you do this week, Mark, on Pink Trip?
I put out the Alex Stein interview.
That's right.
I did that a while back, and everybody thought they saw it already because I released 6 minutes and a little mini doc a few months back. So everybody just saw the trailer and was like, "Oh, I've seen this already." So that really sucked.
Oh, brutal!
I should have did a better trailer.
I watched your Alex Jones one, the most recent one.
Yeah, it was kind of boring, right? Don't you think?
No, I liked it. It was good.
It's a good one.
I wouldn't have brought it up if I didn't like it.
I mean, he didn't hold a baby over a ledge like Michael Jackson.
He didn't
but it was still interesting.
His name is Blanket.
Yeah, I've also got
pretty interesting.
Yeah. Sorry, I was also say I've got Baked and Awake here. Stephen Kaminsky, how have you been, man? It's been a minute.
It has been. Thanks for having me, brother. Great to be here with everybody.
Welcome.
I'm new to this roundtable, and other than Andreas, I must admit you're all new faces to me. So I'm excited to be here and hear what goes on.
Yeah,
Stephen goes back way to the old days. Baked and Awake. He's been doing a lot. He used to do like walking around Seattle tours for Tartarian architecture. He's a lot of really interesting videos as well. And Esoteric Eddie also with us. And you've done some amazing stuff. You've got the books, the Lucifer Secret of Lucifer. What is it called again?
Lucifer Mystery Revealed.
Lucifer Mystery Revealed. Where did I put that? I had a link to it, man. I swear to God. Lucifer Mystery Revealed. There it is right there. Check this out. So he's got these amazing books. And here's one. It's kind of an interesting title. But the mystery kind of is that Lucifer is a misunderstanding right? Without giving too much away just by saying that, and that there's a lot of people who are talking about Lucifer that are covering up things that other groups were talking about that were their own religious, even just slightly adjacent to just regular religious texts, maybe talking about Venus or, you know, Phosphore instead of this Lucifer star, right? Is that kind of a fair thing to say, Eddie?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just want to say what's up to everybody. Glad to be here. But yeah, so the book covers the academic history of Lucifer within the church and the cult. So I basically show you where the whole concept came from, how it progressed, and kind of why we view it the way it is now.
Legit.
Very cool.
So
Very cool.
With that, like a lot of groups today exist that are calling themselves Satanists or Church of Satan, or, you know, they talk about Thelema as agape. Do you associate them with Satan, or what do you think about Satanism in general today versus maybe like ancient Satanism or some of these groups?
Yeah, well, there really is no like ancient Satanism per se. I mean, Satanism started with, the idea of Satan started with Judaism, but even in the earliest versions of Satan within Judaism, that figure was kind of like God's helper, an emissary of God, and it was always like a lowercase, like anybody could be a Satan. Yeah, because Satan just meant like adversary, or like somebody who advocated for God but like instigated mankind, kind of a tester. A Satan was somebody who tested people for God to see where their loyalty stood. But over time, it became an uppercase person, an archetype. And so there really is no ancient Satan per se. Again, because Judaism goes back to what, 600 BC, 500 BC. But over time, that idea progressed to what it is today, and it's the same with Lucifer. But there are cults and there are people who have been worshiping dark forces and dark archetypes that go further back than Judaism, and so it all kind of just ties in together.
And so, what's the deal with Phosphorus and Phosphore as opposed to Lucifer in that original translation?
Yeah, so we get Lucifer from one verse in the Bible. So we've all learned about Lucifer because of this one verse in the Old Testament, and that is Isaiah 14:12. And that's where he says the famous line, "O Lucifer, how art thou fallen," etc. But Lucifer, the word Lucifer primarily comes from the English translation as an uppercase name. But the English came from the Latin, and in the Latin is where we first see the word Lucifer, because it's a Latin word. And in the Latin, Lucifer comes from two root words, lus, light, and fere, which means to hold or to bring, which is where the occult gets the idea of Lucifer being the light bearer. But the Latin came from the Greek, and in the Greek, where we would see Lucifer, we would see the word phosphorus, which is the Greek equivalent to the Latin word Lucifer, which means light or bright or fire. But all three of those translations come from, again, the original Hebrew. And where we would see Lucifer today in the Old Testament, we would see the word Hallel ben Shahar. And Hallel ben Shahar means Hallel, son of Shahar. And the word Hallel, or the name Hallel, means bright or shiny. It's the same. It has the same root word as hallelujah. Hallelujah. It means shiny. But Hallel ben Shahar was referring to a specific Canaanite deity. And Isaiah, he was a royal prophet and a royal scribe, and he understood ancient texts and ancient mythology. So when he wrote that famous verse, he was writing it as a poetic entendre about the Babylonians, because at that time the Babylonians were descending upon the kingdom of Judah and taking them captive. So what Isaiah was saying and what he was doing was prophesizing against the Babylonians and saying that you think you are like Hallel ben Shahar, but one day you will fall. Now, Hallel ben Shahar in the Canaanite text was this lower ranking deity who at one point, according to the text, stepped up to the throne of Baal, but realized he wasn't strong enough or powerful enough to rule on the throne. And so that's what Isaiah was saying about the Babylonians. They think that they're like Hallel ben Shahar, but it goes further than that. There's another entendre on top of that. and that is that all three words, the Greek phosphorus, the Latin Lucifer, and the Hebrew Hallel, are all words that are used to describe Venus. And Venus, as we can see through astronomy, is the brightest celestial object in the morning sky preceding the sun. And so that was another entendre that was thrown on top of that. So Isaiah was saying that the Babylonians think that they're powerful and bright and there's something of importance, but they were soon to be overshadowed by God, in this case, the proverbial sun.
And it's goddess kind of a thing, right? So there's a goddess kind of story in the background here that they're worshiping Venus, but is Venus considered a feminine archetype, or how does that go?
Yeah, Venus has always been a feminine archetype. But what's interesting in the Middle East history, there was a small time period where Venus was switched to a male archetype, and that was during the Canaanite time. So going back to Hillel ben Shahar, we know of as Athtar within the Canaanite text. So he was also known as Athtar, but Athtar is a male rendition of Ishtar and Astarte and Inanna. So Venus was always primarily female, despite that small time period where Venus was represented as the male Athtar.
So this is pretty interesting, right?
Awesome.
I mean, right? Yeah, this is great stuff, by the way, Eddie.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for bringing this to the table. Esoteric Eddie, everybody. But also, the first thing I think of is Catholicism because of Mother Mary. So all the while, you've got this idea that God's a man and blah, blah, blah. But the church keeps having this Mother Mary phenomenon. Do you think that there's some sort of a connection between Venus and the goddess and our Mother Mary kind of in European culture?
Yes, absolutely, man. I think there's different levels to it. There's the occult level where they're doing this deliberately, which we saw happen through the rise of Christianity over in Rome, where they kind of like took an amalgamation of the Greek gods and Roman gods and the new Christian concepts and kind of just put it all together to appease the people, make it easy to control them, and still kind of hold those very deeply rooted beliefs within the rising new Christianity. And then there's like this subconscious psychological aspect of it, because we've always been worshiping the mother, way back in time, so that father, mother, and son symbolism has always been a part of our human way of worship, going far back before even Sumeria, when we were just like nomads. We found artifacts, for example, in Ukraine, one of the oldest known civilizations, even rivaling Sumeria, it comes from Ukraine, known as the Trypillians. And the Trypillians, we've found through just looking at their artifacts and their way of life, they were mostly matriarchal. And almost all of their figurines are that of women, big busty women.
Dude, how many breasts does Mother Earth have? I never noticed that before.
To feed the world, baby.
Whoa. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, you're good. And it makes sense, man, because the earliest of religions were based on what we see, what we know. And what do we know? We know that we come from women, and we know that our fathers are strong and that they sustain life. So it makes sense that over time, as we got sophisticated and as we became more complex as people, so did our religions and so did the imagery of them.
So then, of course, the thing that I think of is Harry Mary, which has been on my mind a lot recently for some reason. But you've seen all these pictures of Harry Mary, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you about this for a while, actually. I've been thinking about how all these renditions. Mary used to be, it's the Harry Mary. If you look up Harry Mary, there's all of these pictures of Mary covered in fur from head to toe. Sometimes her face is a little bit more plain faced in some of these. But in general, it's the Harry Mary. And I wonder about this too, because in terms of Venus, phosphorate, and then to Satan, you have these stories of Pan and Baphomet, right? Like Mary's Harry. Is there anything about Baphomet to you that could, the Knights Templar and the stories that they were hiding the truth about everything? They called it Satan. Is there a connection there to Baphomet through Mother Mary?
Not one that
order.
Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Stefan, really quickly.
Super briefly, one of the images you just showed explicitly was labeled Magdalena, Mary.
Right,
Maria.
Mary Magdalena.
Yeah. So I'm wondering what we're dealing with there in terms of certainly in like modern times, casual people do mix those two up, but are both.
That was the hooker with the heart of gold.
With interesting imagery here. I mean, Mary Magdalene, of course, is assumed to be and understood to be a very distinct person than Mary,
Virgin Mother Mary, right? Right.
But that sculpture was interesting, Andreas. I've never seen a hairy Mary before this moment. And I'll let you guys back.
I've seen
Are all the hairy Marys Mary Magdalene? Have we been missing that detail the whole time?
Is it only Mary Magdalene? Let's make sure about this.
That is a good question.
Harry Virgin Mary. Let's see. That seems like a weirder question to bring up without moderate search. Let me make sure.
That's a way to trim it down, give it a haircut for sure.
Quick search right there. No,
moderate. I hope all of y'all enjoy burning in hell in the name of the Father,
yeah.
Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Just
Jesus
for being
Christ.
present for this web search at all.
I feel bad. Man. I feel bad about it at all. Why is the Virgin Mary feeding Satan breast milk? I don't know. We'll give up for now. Let's just say
grapes of wrath.
Let's just say until we find otherwise, it's just Mary Magdalene. But Esoteric Eddie, continue. You were saying you don't see the necessary connection anyway between Baphomet. Or what were you saying?
Not deliberate, but a lot of these things play on the subconscious too. Like I really like the work of Carl Jung, and a lot of the stuff that we find in occultism and religion plays on archetypes, and it's kind of like Marvel movies or just movies in general. You're going to see a lot of the same themes and stuff like that. That's what makes tarot cards so popular and intriguing, is because they can speak to anybody, and yet it's just like these simple images. So I actually don't know what's up with the hairy Mary thing. I haven't looked into that, but it is interesting that you have this goat figure who's hairy, and then you have this hairy Mary. So it's like, what's up with the hair? I don't know why they made her hairy, but if you'd like to, I'm not sure if we're going to get into it now, but I can definitely get into the history of the Baphomet image and why he's a goat and why he was drawn the way he was.
Yeah, I'm into that. If everybody's okay, I'd like to hear about Baphomet.
I'd love to hear that. Yeah.
Why is Baphomet so furry? Tell us, Eddie.
Absolutely, man. So it's kind of the whole thing with like Lucifer. It all starts at a point, right? And that's what I do as a researcher. I always like to go to the source of things and figure out where all this came from. And so we would not know anything about Baphomet. We would not have Baphomet in our lives at all if it was not for Eliphas Levi. Now, Eliphas Levi was a 19th century French occultist. And just to give you an idea of how influential this guy was, Aleister Crowley claimed to be the reincarnate of this guy. And Blavatsky, the co-founder of the Theosophical movement, repeatedly said that Levi was her, authority, on occultism. But this guy, the very first documentary I ever made on my channel, Esoteric Eddie TV, was about Eliphas Levi. And it's the only documentary I have that's not narrated by me, because when I first started, I thought I was going to pay people to narrate this stuff for me, but I realized that's way too expensive to do when I could just do it myself. But anyway, so this guy is actually very interesting. His life is very interesting. And one day I'd love to make a movie on it. That's how interesting it is. So he's the guy who drew the Baphomet. But to give you a little background about him before we explain what Baphomet meant to him. So again, he was a French occultist, but he grew up in the church, and he loved Christianity. He was a Catholic Christian, and he grew up in the church and was destined to be a priest. I mean, he knew the institution in and out, and his authorities loved him as a young man. They wanted him to be a priest, but he was always too heady and a little too mystic for the church. He was always writing these like very philosophical books on love and women. He loved women. He loved to write about women and stuff like that, and had his own ideas about God, and was always writing about brotherly love. Was just this very heady and mystic hippie guy. And so eventually they gave him an ultimatum and told him, either you stop writing all this weird mystic shit, or you get in line and become a priest. You have this very wonderful life ahead of you. You know, you're going to have this like money, this salary, this place to live, and all this stuff. And so he decided to denounce Catholicism and the priesthood and went the mystic way. And when he did that, his mother actually committed suicide. Like that's how,
Wow.
you know, he was giving up the life of a politician pretty much, you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
He went the mystic route. And he was
I
actually
could see
in
in
prison.
a separate listing in a separate article that he was giving occult lectures to his students within a year of like getting the job and being ordained. Good job. He's a wild man.
Yeah, he was a wild man. He was imprisoned a couple times in France for his writings. Like he was a wild dude. And he actually had a very strange revelation one time when he was in jail. He had this vision where he was led to the future by a female angel and saw this futuristic world that was led by women. You know, not in like a totalitarian feministic way that we see in the left today, but like this beautiful future where women were allowed to take care of the children and women were allowed to take care of the hospital spaces. And he said that in this future, there were no more prisons. There were only these like beautiful mental health centers, and that spiritual and family health was like the center of education and stuff like this. And so, but when it comes to the Baphomet, he drew that image to the end, towards the end of his life. And he tells us exactly what it is. I don't have the words in front of me, but paraphrasing, he says basically it's meant to be a daunting image. It's not meant to be Satan. It's not meant to be the devil, but it is meant to be daunting, because occultism is, truth is, you know, if you're not prepared for truth, it can scar you. It can shift your paradigm. It can make you go crazy. And so what the image meant to him was that it represents the dualistic nature of life. The goat part is the lower vibration, the lower beast nature that's within us all. And you don't have to go far to see evil and violence within humanity. But the torch that's rising out of his head, the torch represents the soul that is supposed to rise above the beast nature. And of course, you got the caduceus in there representing some other occult aspects, and the pentagram, or not even the pentagram, the pentacle on his head, because I believe the pentagram is upside down, the pentacle is upside. So the pentacle on it represents occulted knowledge, you know, the seeking and of knowledge, because all sacred geometry or stuff like that, they're just gatekeepers. You know, a pentagram is a gatekeeper. You know, you might see a pentagram, look at it, be afraid, turn around and run the other way and never keep going down the path. Whereas another person might see a pentagram and say, huh, that's interesting, let me keep going. So all these sacred geometry emblems and symbols, they're all just gatekeepers of your own level of understanding.
It's also interesting, the crescent moons across the board. A lot of the time, the focus on the crescent moon. She's always standing on the crescent moon. Kind of a relation there. The other thing is, so I find it kind of interesting that we think of the animal as the lower instinct. And Thomas Jefferson talks about when someone challenges you to a duel or you're angry, that you take 10 seconds to disconnect from your reptilian brainstem. And you can take 100 seconds if that doesn't work. But that's supposed to pull you into your higher monkey functions, right? Which is a joke. But in the same sense, these animal instincts are not your instincts. They're your reflexology. So your reflexes. Maybe that's also the point of why Baphomet's head instead of their genitals are, you know, and because you can look at Pan in mythology and it's kind of in the inverse, where you have a dude who's got his animal instincts. I mean, even that, he's got the face, but often it's his, you know, his lower side, his underside is his animal side, right? It's his baser instincts are considered to be like his kundalini.
Well, Baphomet also does have the cloven hooves, though. What I, you know, because I've seen the image several times, and Eddie, awesome breakdown. That was fantastic. The wings are something that I never actually took total notice of, but it's this. You have this figure that is this beautiful amalgamation of all of these different aspects of what a human being is, and there are wings there too. I think, in my humble understanding, would pair with that torch above the head of the goat.
Also, the solvent coagula, right? Solve and
Mhm.
coagula. Who does this mean?
That's that alchemist's move. That's that. Well, go ahead, Eddie. Go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. What was the question?
What does solve and coagula mean?
Oh, it means solve coagula. It means like dissolve and break down, pretty much.
And come back together. Solve, coagula, come back. Yes, solve, breakdown, coagula, come back together.
Yep, yep.
Wow.
Yeah, Levy was a trip, man. He was a very prolific writer and mystic and alchemist, and but that's pretty much what it meant to him. You know, it was just that dual nature, and
he was a Catholic who decided that the Catholic Church had some problems, and so he went just teaching straight magic. So what does that? Where does it leave Satanism?
Right.
What does that make out of? I mean, because Americans have this idea of Satanism. It's this like Anton LaVey thing, right? Where it's all, it's the monsters.
It's funny you bring him up. So if you read Anton LaVey's book, The Satanic Bible, in the intro, he actually berates Levy and a couple other guys like Crowley. He thinks that Levy's too soft. He like pretty much just like says like Levy's whack because he still writes about God and Jesus and love. So to Levy was more hardcore. LaVey thought Levy was like a soft dude and like was just lame. So whereas LaVey took it even further with the whole thing, because Levy, Eliphas Levy, the French occultist, he wasn't dark. He was not a dark magician by any means. If you read his actual stuff, it's all about love, transmutation, reaching God. It just had a little mystic spin to it, which at that time was considered like witchcraft and craziness.
Right. But like the Gnostics had Sophia of Christ, which is same kind of.
Yeah.
Did Anton LaVey take his taken surname in any kind of intentional way?
Well, yeah, he changed his name. Anton wasn't his name Anton Levy, and he changed his name to is there Antoine Levy?
I don't even think it was that close. I don't even think it was that close, his real name. And then he did end up disavowing like almost all of his
Howard Levy, yeah.
all of his work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Eliphas Levy also changed his name. Eliphas Levy's original name, his original French name was Alphonse Constant.
Also cool.
Interesting. Everyone takes Levi. The Levites were the bearers of the Ark of the Covenant to Ethiopia, the tribe of Levi.
Interesting.
This is the significance of Levi. So they're the ones that are the holders of.
Did you just put Howard the Duck in for
carrier of the knowledge? Yeah.
Just to baseline us real quick.
I mean, Howard the Duck is just, baseline. That's exactly right. Go ahead.
My, the way I always receive kind of modern Satanism is they're basically agnostics who favor action and agency, like as the highest calling of man, rather than reflection and passivity and patience and discipline and kind of restricting the animal nature like we talked about. I think that what we call Satanists, I don't think they believe in like a god called Satan that looks like Baphomet or anything like that. I think that they don't know what to believe, but they favor agency and action. And they see that as kind of like a magic in the world, that when you take action and when you take charge and when you have impetus, like things just start developing magically around you, like technologies and art and everything. So to me, they're just basically agnostics who hate the way that Christians discipline themselves and become passive and reflective instead of just taking all the action you can while you're alive.
Right. To be fair, so you've got molestation in the Catholic Church, and the Protestants aren't much better. Plus, they're building these utopian communities across the West, which are the idea of freedom to a utopian Protestant community is the freedom from sin. So rather than you have the freedom to drink, it's that in nature you would have the freedom to drink. So here in this utopian community, you have the freedom from the want to drink, right? So we'll make a community that restricts you so much you can't even sin, and you'll be free from sin. And that's come on. That's kind of there's some problems with that too.
Some leaps in that logic. Yeah.
Right.
I think there's a happy medium somewhere, probably, between devout Catholicism and Satanism.
Well, and then the other thing is like George Bush. Let me see if that'll pull up anything. If I type goddess in George Bush, you kind of picture him worshiping a goddess. I don't know, not quite. But you get to my point. There's some people that probably exist out there that worship the goddess, right? And there's this kind of Venus goddess thing. And they finance groups called ISIS for fun. Do you think there's anything to the goddess worship cult of the elite? Is there something there with, Yale, Skull and Bones, the goddess?
Yeah, man, absolutely. And it's interesting because the further we go back in history, the more the goddess was represented and worshipped and revered. And for example, the Sumerians are like the oldest civilization according to our modern timeline, the 7,000 years that we're a part of right now. And they worshipped all different types of gods, of course. But when they were overtaken by the Akkadians through Sargon, Sargon actually implemented, I believe, his daughter or niece, Enheduanna, as the high priestess of the Temple of Ur. And we still have a couple of her poems, and she worshipped Inanna. So Inanna is like one of the oldest of the goddesses, alongside Asherah. And Asherah, as we're starting to realize, was apparently Yahweh's consort or wife. Yahweh being the God of the Bible, the Old Testament. Yeah. So and the reason is because all of the Abrahamic religions come from the Sumerian mythologies in one way or another. And in the Sumerian mythologies, our gods were anthropomorphic. They were human. And so they looked like us, they lived like us, they had sex like us. So all the men had, wife or wives. It was only as it progressed in time and as the world got bigger and harder to control, where they had to make everything sublime and say, no, you can't worship God alone at your house or whatever to your figurines. You got to come to us and centralize it. Religion became centralized and sublime. There's just like this invisible guy. The physical gods aren't here anymore. But as far as the people who run the world today still worshiping the goddess, I'm sure there's a lot of that going on. But it gets deeper, man, and this is something that I'm just uncovering, because I just finished writing my third book, which is going to be on consciousness and the simulation theory. And what I've realized is that the human body is amazing, and it's wild, and I can see why the creator designed it the way it did. And the body has been reflected throughout occult iconography and symbolism and mythology all throughout, because through the body and the mind, how we elevate and how we commune with God and how we get back to heaven. And so the human vagina, along penis, are probably the most powerful things in this universe, because through the communion of those two things, each one of us got here. And so it's not so much about the worship of the goddess, but so much as the understanding and the reverence for the human female reproductive system.
Also, I look at some of these pictures from the Da Vinci, Knights Templar Da Vinci groups. What is it? The Merovingian cults, right? And they have these pictures like androgynous Jesus, androgynous religious figures. Is there anything to that? Because we think about the human body and transgenderism, but also Hermes Trismegistus talks about androgyny, right? And there's a lot of ideas of the cults of hermaphrodites in ancient Egypt and different places. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And getting back to the Baphomet for a little bit,
Right.
it has some signs of androgyny, and I think it was Levy, but somewhere in my research, I came across somebody who said that eventually human beings would become androgynous, and that's spoken about a lot within the occult systems. Is that like androgyny is like this elite form of spirituality, because at that point you're like dissolving everything. You're dissolving the ego and all of that, because what keeps us trapped in samsara, for example, in reincarnation, according to like the Buddhist and like Hindu concepts, is it's attachment. So as we elevate spiritually in our souls, according to the occult and even the spiritual systems, we need to shed ourselves of ego and shed ourselves of attachment. And one of the very last few things that we will need to shed is our sexuality and is our ego. So it's this very complex thing, man. We're here on earth within our countries and our corporatocratic systems. Yeah, I can see why transgenderism and its agendas are evil, when it comes to the family structure. But looking outside of that and who we are as souls, is your soul male? Is your soul female? Or is it just a child of God, a creation of God? I don't know. But within the occult systems, they speak a lot about this elevation eventually leading to an androgynous point, and that to be androgynous as a soul is powerful, and it's something that would be harmful and painful to our ego because we are so identified, or so we identify so much with the archetype of who we are, with the archetype of Xirtus, the archetype of esoteric Eddie, this and that. But yes, it is spoken of about a lot within the occult systems.
Man, it's so crazy. So this also reminds me again, I brought up Albert Pike because he's from, hundreds of years ago, but still was writing books about the Indo-Aryan deities and worship and samsara and doing yoga, all these Freemasons with long hair. So I wonder, do you think that there's a kind of logic to the plan of that then, that maybe these groups are allowing for whatever our contemporary politics are for Fabian steps? This is, not necessarily that they sympathize with the transgender movement, but it's very useful to this alchemical process.
Yeah, man. Sorry, I just had to unmute my phone. Also, real quick, just so I know, I'm in my car right now. I'm on vacation out here in Texas.
Thanks for doing this from your car, man. It's amazing.
Thanks for joining for vacation. Thank you. That's good.
You're welcome. Actually, I was going to try and do this from a Freemason library over here in San Antonio, the 44th Lodge. Me and my friend are here, and her friend is actually a Freemason. Real nice guy, though, not up to no nefarious stuff, but we're waiting for him to get out of a meeting right now so we can go smoke cigars and drink a couple beers.
Nice.
But so yeah, doing this out of my car. But yeah, man, I don't know. It gets deep, because you can view these things from all different perspectives, right? You can view it from just like the political perspective, or like the us versus them perspective. But as I just finished writing this book on consciousness, like I'm fresh out of this much larger perspective where I'm starting to sit back and realize like there's a much bigger evolution taking place. And again, I don't agree with the politicization or all these nefarious agendas of people going on that are destroying the family and polluting the minds of the young. But then again, there's this larger thing happening outside of our countries, outside of our planet, and so I think everything that happens, whether it's aware of it or not, is helping this evolution along. And we don't really know what that end goal is going to be. We don't really know if God, whatever it is finished with us. Like just because the Bible is closed, who's to say that there isn't a whole nother Bible being written right now that will be read aloud 4,000 years from now. So I don't believe that God is finished with us. I think everything that has happened up to this point has only been a part of where he wants us to go, or where it wants us to go. And I think for example, UFOs, right? UFOs and aliens came at a time when we were becoming more industrial and more technological. So the UFO aspect also helped elevate our consciousness and our conscious awareness of what could be possible. And today it's happening right now. On every news channel around the world, we're seeing talks about UFO this, UFO that, as we're progressing. So it's almost like every time we get ready to collectively elevate and upgrade a little bit, something has to happen outside of us to help us expand our conscious awareness. And so I don't think we're done elevating and done evolving as a spirit body machine. And our God, whatever that is, the creator, wants to slowly elevate and expand until we get to the point where we can fully intake what it is we really are, and what this all really is, and who it really is.
Eddie, do you think that, I'm just curious, have we ever been more of what we are before? And are we coming back to a greater realization, or is it a straight shot?
Well, I love the idea of the great remembrance.
Awesome.
That's something that I've been kind of like holding on to lately. Like, I think most of us, if not all of us, I mean, we're all eternal, we're all infinite. But some souls, I believe, are kind of new in a sense. They're kind of, but some of us have been around have lived certain lives for a really, really long time. So I think like we've all kind of just been placed here in this certain simulation that we call the universe. But I think that who we really are is far more ancient than this, and far more powerful and far more connected to God than we can understand right now, and that there's going to be a great remembrance, and that might be what death is. When we pass on, that might be that awakening, like, wow, that was such a funny little dream.
Cool. Thank you. Cool.
I'm thinking also about evolution, because some people have these ideas about what evolution is, but do you have thoughts on, evolution of thought or evolution of consciousness as opposed to just, biological evolution?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I see you pulled up Taylor's stuff right there, Pierre Taylor.
Yeah, Teilhard, technically the French. The French, they don't even count their
Desjardins. That's right.
Yeah, Die Hard. No, I don't know. I'm pretty bad at that. But I just did a documentary on him. Actually,
Cool.
He's a very interesting guy too. And for those who don't know, Teilhard de Chardin, he's the guy who said the famous quote, "We are not humans having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience." That's the guy. And again, he was a Jesuit priest. He was a Jesuit priest, but he was just like Levi in the sense that he was not nefarious. If you go back and read his stuff, he was all about God, all about love, about elevating the consciousness and stuff like that. And he was actually a World War veteran. I believe World War II. Well, no, he was a badass. He was a badass, a war veteran, held it down for the people in all kinds of ways. And he spoke about that. And it kind of going back off of what I just said in that previous speech. Yeah, man, I think that it was God's plan all along to slowly elevate us, trying to slowly turn up the knob. There's this saying in Kabbalah, or there's the story in Kabbalah known as like the broken vessels. And within it, there's a philosophy known as Tzimtzum. And in this philosophy, it is stated that God tried to create a universe before this one. And when he did, or when it did, it put all of its love and light in the first vessels, the first beings. But that light was so strong that it shattered the entire universe. So that God had to go back and kind of like adjust the ingredients so that we wouldn't receive all of its light right away. And so that's Tzimtzum in Kabbalah. And so I think that's kind of what all this is. It's kind of like a slow school. It's a slow process of education until we get to the point where, as a spiritual being, we can fully understand and receive God's love.
The other thing that's interesting about Chardin is the Catholic Church tried to suppress him, and then he was in Peking. He discovered the Peking man, which was this kind of proof of hominid diversity, right? And so some people use that as proof of biological evolution as well, but his whole plot was different than Darwin's. He talked about the idea of consciousness and believed, I think it was the map I had a second ago, that there's the geosphere, biosphere, atmosphere, and noosphere. Nous has to do with the Greek word for mind, and that maybe the omega point supersedes the alpha point. So everything comes from what we're calling God, which he's calling the omega point. It's the final culmination of all existence of space-time, and that space-time itself starts from inside of that which is outside of it. So the omega point then produces the geogenesis, the cosmogenesis, the biogenesis, and then the Christogenesis. When the Christogenesis is this idea, we lost Eddie for a second. That was culminating with a question for Eddie, but you guys can answer it for a second. When do you think about Christ, right? Because his idea was that Christ is the ultimate human evolutionary point. Or is there something like that where we hit a peak human?
I don't know. I'll jump in here though. I got some holy water because
really?
You guys got me. So yeah, it's blessed and exercised.
Really? Let me see that. Where'd you get that from?
Was it demonic to start with? Why was it exercised?
No, it's to get rid of the demons.
Chug.
Chug.
All
right. This I got it's just too much Baphomet on the screen, man.
Where's that? Where's that holy water?
Are you Catholic, Mark?
No, yeah. I mean, I was raised Catholic. I don't know if I'm not a practicing Catholic anymore, but I have a very Catholic family who loves to push stuff like this on me.
I got
you want a quick contrarian take?
It came in handy today. Right.
I want to really quickly just post this on the screen for a second because, where Jesus once preached, the holy waters are draining away, because I don't know if you looked into this, but a lot of the people that are selling holy water, they're getting it from the sewers of Jordan and from it's a really big thing that you can turn. I'm actually doing a video with David Young
This
Jr.
is actually from a Catholic church. We didn't get this from this. How dare you, dude?
I mean, as a Catholic, I'm just saying be careful, because I know how much they clean the Galilee worship. All right, but sorry, that's hot take.
That's exactly what a demon-possessed person would say.
Just be careful, don't drink it. Seth, keep going.
Oh no, I just wanted to say I really like the Pokemon Baphomet image you put up before, because I think that it's an important thing that the human species needs to do is overcome superstition. I wouldn't include in that like prayer and worship of God and goodness and light and stuff like that, but like superstitions about like negative entities that don't exist. And somebody said something about like a gatekeeper, like symbols being gatekeepers. Like, I'm not going anything near 6s. If it's got 6s or 33s, I'm not interested. Like, this is just a very limiting way of being your own gatekeeper. So I like that little Pokemon Baphomet. There is no real Baphomet goat guy. So like, if we can get over it and cartoonize it and make it cute, it loses all its power, just like the teddy bear. We didn't used to think bears were cute. We used to just be mortally afraid of them and hate them. So I think it's all positive going towards that Christ-like state. There's nothing to be afraid of, or there is no enemy.
Legit. So,
well, I mean, and I agree ultimately with what you just said, Seth. However, and
the best way to disagree with anybody. I love that. NLP. Keep going.
I am also not, while I'm not totally joining your holy water shower, Mark, I am.
I'm trying to get it on you guys, but
Well, I want to throw in a little bit of a sliver of interesting information in that. Is anybody here familiar with Tracy Twyman and her work?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, so familiar with Levi? Love the breakdown. Thank you, Eddie. Appreciate the idea of tearing away superstition. But there is negativity out there. There is antithesis to a thesis, and to Tracy Twyman's work, she had done some pretty solid research, pretty scary research on what the Templars were getting into. Apparently, while it had nothing to do with the image that was shown, they were, according to her research, communicating with an entity that was identifying as Baphomet. The way they were interacting with this entity was through pretty grisly means, through severed heads, sometimes even grislier. And
Mark, remember, these were Catholics, right?
That's good. That's right. Wait, that's right. That's right. They also, apparently, according to Twyman, were able to bring forth the fractional reserve system because of the communication with this entity. This entity actually was a kind of entry point to our modern system.
Well, that's fair. You can bless us for the fractional reserve banking.
Every time I hear
I'll take that
demonic stuff, I'm throwing holy water from now on. That's my response.
I'll take it.
I don't want to end up like the little girl from Exorcist, guys. Come on.
God, she's not very famous anymore.
Who doesn't want to crawl on a wall? I mean, come on.
Oh God.
The fractional reserve bank is an important point because they had rules and it was sinful to bank, and then the Knights Templar made it possible, right? And so that's why to this day it's amazing that there's an anti-Semitic conspiracy when the Catholic Church runs the World International Bank, right? The World Vatican Bank is still a crazy powerful bank, and it's involved with cocaine and gold and human trafficking every once in a while comes up. I mean, right? So that's the Knights Templar. That's the reason that worked out. And before that, it would have been Ottoman, and you would have to pay whatever government's in charge locally, which is usually the Cordoba Caliphate, until the Catholic Church says, "Hey, we're going to make you be Catholic and not just Christian. Like, you have to worship Paul now and think that every letter he wrote is the word of God." Right?
It doesn't smell like sewage, by the way. It smells nice.
That's good.
Hey guys, sorry to be a bummer, but I'm gonna have to get going.
All right, I got one last question for you, if that's possible. Is that all right, Eddie?
Tell him no.
Yeah, let's get it.
All right, last question is, all right, Chardin, Jesus Christ is the ultimate creation consciousness versus Baphomet. Go. What do you think? Is it, because he said that Christ was this point we were getting to, and is Baphomet versus Christ, or is there any correlation or relation there? Is the ultimate evolution Christ or not? What do you say?
Man, that's a tough one, but I'm going to go with my boy JC on this one. Jesus Christ.
Good answer.
Just because.
Right?
Go ahead.
No, good answer. I think I would rather be Jesus Christ than a transgendered furry goat god. with giant breasts, even though it's tempting in some ways.
Holy water's working, guys.
Yeah.
Well, because Christ as an archetype represented, the innocence and the actual discipline. It takes a human to humble themselves before God. That's what the archetype in the story is. If you just look at it as a mythology, it's the mythology of the process it takes to humanize, to actually feel our humanity and humble ourselves as humans, as fleshly bodies before God, and that's really the situation, man. It's like we're here as human beings, even though according to Taylor, we are spiritual beings, which is true as well, but we're here now, conjoined as a spirit and as a physical body, and God made it that way. The creator made it that way, and at any point this can all end. And so the Christ mythology and the Christ archetype is like realizing that and realizing where we come from and then humbling ourselves before that. And so that we can return back to our spirit form and to our higher form. Whereas the Baphomet part of it is like going within and bypassing God and going to God or whatever God is through our own inner working. And I believe both are important. Both are important as we toggle through this simulation, because the church has a monopoly on the Christ archetype, and the occultists have a monopoly on the Baphomet archetype.
Not in India. Sorry.
Yeah, you're good. But ultimately, it's going to have to be an interaction between just us and God, ultimately. So it's important to be able to walk this earth having that connection. And so if I'm going to choose between the two, I'm going to choose the JC method, of humbly arriving that location.
That would make a great t-shirt and or sports drink. JC method.
Absolutely, man.
Oh, you're muted, Andreas. You're muted.
Oh yeah, I said make sure you also check out Esoteric Eddie's Big Cartel, and also his Instagram, his YouTube videos. He's got full-length documentaries, Lucifer Revealed. You can get even deeper into this whole thing. He's got a lot of great content out there. So thanks, buddy.
Awesome.
Enjoy your vacation.
Take care, man.
Later,
Thank you.
All you guys,
Thank you.
man. Hit me up.
Yeah.
We'll do it soon.
Peace.
Yeah.
Legit. All right. So basically, I was gonna say, yeah, go ahead. But
I just wanted to
also say, sorry, Mark. Are you okay? Are you doing all right?
No, I'm all right. I'm just, this one's for Memery in the chat.
He's going to like this one. I'm about to say something Mark likes a lot. I think that there's no argument that you can make against it, that the Christ consciousness is hierarchically superior to Baphomet. Baphomet is basically an understanding of the human condition, being the spirit in the body, the condition of that, whereas Christ is the detachment of the self that allows you to recognize what the self is. So there is no whoever drew Baphomet probably had something closer to a Christ consciousness to be able to understand the nature that man is you're holy watering that one. That one's bad.
I agree. It's the power of Christ that compels
holy
you.
water. Yeah, I mean,
I like that. I like that breakdown though. And ultimately Christ consciousness is the trajectory for humanity. Christ consciousness,
so much
however,
blasphemy,
not
you brought
not
the
the religious dogma.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Yeah.
You brought The Exorcist. That movie, The Exorcist, more than the book, the priest in the original Exorcist movie is based on Teilhard de Chardin, who ended up living in New York City because he was silenced and suppressed by the Catholic Church, except that Julian Huxley ended up publishing his Phenomenon of Man with a foreword, and that got his books out there in the 50s, about 20 years after they were originally published and suppressed. So, I mean, the other thing is everything he said is now what science is trying to point to for evolution and for consciousness. They're saying, well, Darwin didn't know what he was talking about. It wasn't just random. There clearly are and people now say, oh, we'll have a Gattaca future where people pick their genes. Isn't that what relationships are for? People are already kind of selectively been breeding for a long time, or unless economics have forced them otherwise. So we have this point where humanity is being suppressed of the knowledge we've had for over a century about how we can take into control our evolution. And it just seems to be the same thing we've always heard: live the best life you can, make new lives with the best lives that you can meet, right? And then train those lives to be the best that you can train them to be. It's not really that far of a leap from family, which is kind of the opposition of this, destruct the family nucleus thing. Anyway.
I doubt all of humanity was ever really on the exact same stage of development. You know what I mean? I would think that, probably we've always had elites that are illuminated, and then they do what they do with that information might make them want to be a Catholic priest or might make them want to join the Church of Satan. But I doubt that, all of the, the rabble, the unwashed rabble have always, at some point were like fully enlightened and then forgot everything. I bet we just always had enlightened elites.
It does feel like there's always somebody who has the Farmer's Almanac who knows the weather, and then there's a bunch of people who are like, that guy's amazing. Like
I wouldn't plant that right now. Yeah.
I'm sure what they're wrestling with now with the internet, which is probably, we're not going to have it for that much longer, is what they're probably wrestling with is how to, now that there's an easy ability to tell people the truth, you tell people lies using the media, but they could also tell the truth, whatever they know about existence that we don't know. So that's probably something that they wrestle with if it's, as it gets harder and harder to keep us ignorant, if there's any, what would the cost to illuminating us be?
Right. And so, Mark, you said you were Catholic, you aren't Catholic. What do you think about the organized religion then? So you're saying that we got to be good people, but where's the line between just being followers of a cult or of an organization and the line of following God and being the best person you can be and all that?
I don't know, dude. What the hell?
I don't know, bro.
You expect me to start defending the Catholic Church?
I don't know what you're going to do. I was curious.
You're flicking holy water at us. You must have, I mean, what would you say ultimately it is better to fall in line with the institutions set before us? Or is there an alternative if and when an institution fails us?
All institutions are going to fail you. I mean, I don't know. I'm not defending the Catholic Church, guys. It was a joke.
I like you said, all institutions are going to fail you. That's it.
That's a fact. That's a thing.
Right. Yeah, I don't really believe in organized religion. Is usually just a mechanism for control. It's all just, I mean, really going the other way though, and being like, oh, Satan is there. I mean, like whatever. Just everybody should strive to be as least selfish as possible and follow their conscience, and hopefully develop a strong conscience that can lead you in the right direction.
And why shouldn't you be the most selfish person you can possibly be to make yourself as powerful as possible?
I like everything but that selfish person.
Don't you sound like anti-Randist? You sound kind of anti-Randist, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think there's something to be said about caring about more than just yourself. Same thing happens when you have children.
Okay, yes.
You kind of people tend to be a lot happier when they have children and they're not just living for themselves anymore. It's kind of like that. You tend to find more happiness when you're not self-absorbed.
Yeah.
I got you there. Yes. Okay.
The Ayn Rand idea around selfishness is that basically it's like trickle down prosperity. Like if the people who are capable of great things are slowed down by the people who aren't, they won't be able to create the great things that later trickles down to the people.
Yeah, well, there's a balance to everything. Obviously, you're going to be selfish for your kids. You're going to want, I mean, there's a level to it though. It's like anything. You got to find a good balance.
Yeah, exactly. Even in in Atlas Shrugged, for people who don't know, like all the industrialists leave society because all their industry is being nationalized and taxed and stuff. So they leave and they go create their own undetectable community with the technology at the time, like a cloaked community called Galt Skulch, where they have all the good musicians, composers, scientists, all the bankers are there, everything, and they build themselves like a little paradise. But it's not sustainable. They do get discovered and it crumbles. So even she understood that
gunfight.
Even she understood there's a balance, with selfishness, and when it goes to, its final expression is not sustainable.
Well, so you have to give something to the peasants so that you can keep what you have. And so then it becomes giving as little as possible in order to sustain having more than everybody else, right? So
well, what John Galt had was free energy. He was Tesla. John Galt had the free energy engine, the water engine, and that's what they didn't want to have it nationalized and ruined, and not have the ability to recreate it again. So he felt that he had to hide it away.
Right, but isn't it more that they're trying to keep the technology from replacing and disrupting the monopolies they have, not that they're trying to take it to create a free energy monopoly?
In the novel?
Right.
In the novel, they feel that the nationalization of industry is unfair and also cripples the industry to the point where it can't even be recreated.
Right. Yeah. So I feel like that's the thing, is they're saying it keeps you from progress, because then people say, well, we already have a good thing going here. Why would we disrupt that? And, in this way, at least eventually it gets stolen, and therefore everyone gets it. But it requires first all of the selfishness and everyone trying to steal it until eventually it ends up torn to parts in front of everyone and shit.
Right. Then there's also the train metaphor where the people continue to use the technology without the technologists being present, and they create a huge like human disaster where a train gets stuck in a tunnel and everyone suffocates because they don't have any skilled people or anyone who understands the technology left.
But, in general, I think also, Mark, your point about reactionaryism. So we have a society that's built around reacting. So everything gets so bad. And then we say, okay, well, we have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And we create a society that's trying to oppose its parents. And then the next kids do that, the next generation. So is this just like the way we throw pendulums back and forth? This is reaction commentary?
I don't know, dude. I don't remember saying that. When did I say that? Was that another episode?
I mean, yeah, maybe I put words in your mouth.
Yeah, no, that sounded way too deep for something I would say.
You said like Christians versus Satanists. You're like, well, yeah, but Satanists go in the other direction. What did you mean by that?
Well, because there's a lot of people that are like, be selfish. It's like there's a balance there. Like, obviously, you don't want to be so selfish that you just walk out into a like an alley and let people kill you and take all your shit. But there's a certain level, like where today's society, would you say the problem is that people are too selfless? Would you say that's the problem with society today, or would you think maybe people are too selfish, too self-absorbed?
Yeah, definitely.
Is there a difference between being self-absorbed and selfish?
Yeah, okay. If you want to get into the deep waters there, I'm sure you can find a distinction. But yeah,
I think the self-absorption is probably even worse than the selfishness, because people have
I would agree with you. Yeah.
Because people have very unselfish ideals. Like if you take like young socialists, like their whole ideology is selflessness, but then they're so self-absorbed to the level where they're not able to live out the ideal at all, and they go to
oppressive vegans. Yeah. I mean, get out of my face, bro. I get it. You can eat your lettuce. I'm gonna do me.
Yeah, like me.
I've been eating more lettuce recently. I'm still eating meat, don't worry.
And how far does it go with being reactionary? So, we talk about how in the Middle Ages, there were people that prayed backwards to piss off the Catholics, but also it turns out because they used to pray left, they would read left to right to left is the way it used to be, right to left. And so they would do this backwards because that's the original way. So the Catholic Church was doing it backwards, right? So at some point, when you're looking into the opposite of the thing that's lying to you, how far do you get to go before it turns into like too much, because they're saying the Catholic Church is so bad, then if this is addressed as the opposite, shouldn't they go running the opposite direction from what they know is bad? And how far do they go?
I think it's really important to be able to entertain two concepts at once, two contradictory concepts at once, because that creates synthesis between the left and the right hemisphere of the brain. And then, studies show that things like astral projection and telepathy and stuff like that are all occur in people who have heightened synthesis of the left and right hemispheres of the brain. And you can train yourself to do that by brushing your teeth with your left hand, or you can entertain two contradictory notions at the same time without experiencing a bias, and this is just ways to train your brain to be stronger.
I think, Mark, you said it well. Ultimately, cultivate your conscience. We've all got it. That is that connection that I think Eddie was inferring. We all have that connection. Cultivate that connection with God through the conscience, through Jiminy Cricket, because it's there.
Yeah, I agree. Do you now, Mr. Douglas, do you think that there is like the Omen or like the Damien archetype where some people are born with a reverse conscience?
Well, yeah, I certainly
do you believe
think
in genetic psychopathy where there's just bad people, bad babies?
I think that there are aberrations within any system.
And I think you also get a head injury too.
Yeah, right. There are going to be circumstances in this universe where everything is possible, that we're going to have extreme cases. Do I think that even the most extreme cases can be ameliorated? Yes, I think there can be extreme cases of things like miracles. So while, yeah, I think that there are people that could be born with certain situations that would lend themselves to being what we would look at as extremely malignant behavior, yeah, I think that there also is, on the other hand, wonderful people on the other end of the spectrum that can help, or at least bring attention and awareness to that, so that those that are on those extreme ends of baddiness would not be then demonized, but then looked at with extreme interest to understand.
But maybe it's not their soul. Maybe it's like there's a bodily thing.
Yes.
Just a quick pause to acknowledge that somebody just paid $10 to dunk on.
Defining selfishness versus self-absorbed is deep water for normies like Ping Trip. Ping insists he's a normie for his normie audience, but what is he doing
with a lot of shit y'all talk about? It goes over my head. There's no doubt.
I think
he
just accused. Right. I think he just accused you of being a closeted, transgendered, lesbianic, practicing.
Yeah, he's saying you're fake.
I mean, if y'all want to dive into that water, okay, self-absorbed. Is that not somebody who's also going to be selfish? I mean, is like you're going to be self-absorbed and not selfish?
Not necessarily. I think self-absorbed is also like the word idiot from idiocy, from idiom. You've got this cushy idiom around you that you're obsessed with, and so you believe in this instinctually. What information you're getting in, you're reacting to it, and so you become an idiot. There's a lot of people that are trying to be selfless idiots, right? Like the road to good intentions. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. So many people say, "Oh, I mean, look at the Democratic Party. There's probably a lot of them that are actually nice kids." I think we've met a few, right? I think that happens. They're not all completely selfish per se. They're self-absorbed because they're reading online about how there's problems in Africa, but there's kids starving in their own hometown, and there's old people starving in their own hometown. I
think it's going into weird waters. It's like you find me somebody who's self-absorbed.
Like, let me put an example. I like the idea of having a perfect life, right? So let's imagine I want everyone to not get the plague, and I'll give them vaccines and keep them healthy, just to keep them healthy so they don't get my kids sick and my family sick, right?
If you're obsessed with dissolving the self, are you self-obsessed?
So that's when it gets a little, again, like going into like
is Buddha
self-obsessed? You can pick all this shit apart and go, oh no, this is selfish. If you're doing something that benefits other people other than yourself, you can say, oh, but you're only doing it because it makes you happy. Okay, well then I guess it's selfish to help other people because it makes me happy. Like we can go down that road. At the end of the day, if you're helping other people, truly helping other people, that has to fall into selfless.
So you pull the trolley. If you don't pull the trolley, then you'll be sad all day that you didn't pull the trolley. You know what I mean? Right. So you won't, if you jump in front of the trolley, if you don't jump in front of the trolley, then 1,000 kids die. Let's say.
Right. Here's the real answer to this riddle: is you excommunicate the person who made this riddle up. So no one, just the act of entertaining this thought experiment is itself debased.
Right, but I mean, what you ought to do is you ought to build a solution. You know, you build 2 tracks, or you build a new solution, right? Like you make a world
to entertain the precept of the question. To entertain it at all is you're already utilitarian when you're thinking through this. It forces you to think as a utilitarian. I believe this was done on purpose with the trolley problem and things like this, you know. And I don't.
Well, for sure, it had to be because you have to because most people aren't thinking about the fact that people are dying no matter what every day, all the time.
Right.
So when you force them to be aware of that, it's kind of
here's the ledger of everyone that died today. How are you going to save them all? You know.
I mean, how many people see other people doing good things and fucking hate them for it? Like, look at this guy. He's donating money and he's just trying to be a big shot. He just wants everybody to love him. It's like it's that kind of mentality of like, no, nobody's good. Everybody's shitty. If you're doing anything good, you're doing it for shitty reasons.
I mean, I'm a little skeptical some of the time, right?
Why not just accept?
Taxes messes that up. Giving away a lot of money right now is a way that you save more money than if you were taxed on it. So
so they're just a piece of shit at the end of the day.
It's a little tricky.
He also does that cool little hand move.
Everybody's just a piece of shit. No matter, don't try to do anything good because somebody will rationalize you as being a piece of shit for doing it.
Well,
I'm sure they don't listen to us. You know what I mean? Like Bill Gates doesn't give a damn with it.
I remember Disney had this show called Wizards of Waverly Place, and the entire point of the show was to teach children about utilitarianism, because it would be that these kids are given all of a sudden the power to have something that they would want, and then they learn by the end of the episode there's a reason why they usually don't have that, because if they did have that, then everything would collapse and they wouldn't be able to get more of what they want in the future. So it's kind of the villain. Every episode is the hero, because the villain learns that they're being gluttonous. and they're eventually going to run out of magic if they don't stop, right? And so maybe they say, all right, we're gonna have no more chores and our parents are gonna be children for a week. But then what happens is their parents don't do any work. So they realize, okay, yeah, we actually have to do this all the time. It's in our best interest that we have our parents that are normal parents or whatever. And it's just constantly teaching kids, yeah, you should do the right thing because it benefits you. And I think that is also kind of a psychology of our age, but it's not necessarily wrong that what benefits you is good for other people, right? Because what benefits the most usually does include you.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going to do the most good possible, I theoretically would need to be the best me I could be to be able to exert that goodness as much as possible. So is it not in my as well as others' best interest for me to be interested in making me the best I can be so that I can do that good that you're talking about? I think that, yes, when people do good things, that's awesome. And there are good people out there that do beautiful things. And they're the people that will look at others and judge them for having sinister intentions when they don't, because there are plenty that do, but there are also plenty that don't. Those people that will automatically jump to judge on sinister intentions are small-minded people. Take a moment and consider that perhaps you are upset that you are not able to exert the goodness that is within you already. And consider that perhaps the situation that we are in doesn't do us any benefit in making us the best that we can be. It does for a few, but not for many.
But then the question is, then you have the idea of, okay, let's say that if one person dies, that many more people live. So it's all about harming one to save many. So it's actually the idea of inflicting suffering and embracing that suffering has to be inflicted, or that it has to be, channeled into specific personal places.
That thought experiment is just that, a thought experiment. And while I appreciate our engagement with it, I also appreciated your initial approach by saying, hey, you can build yourself out of this situation in the first place. So
this is true. Yeah, because my next thought is Uyghurs in China, because that's the thing, or maybe Turks and Kurds, right? So you've got a democracy where there's many more Turks, and what doesn't benefit the Kurds benefits the Turks, right? So for the greater many over the lesser few. So utilitarianism also has
and who set that system up, though? That system was not set up by some all-knowing third party. That was set up by the Turks. So, I mean,
and they are counting the votes themselves.
It's a tilted scale, yeah.
Right.
That's the thing. We also exist within these power structures that are set up to limit the ability for us to even engage in ways that would be most beneficial, both for us and for everybody else.
Yeah, that annoying guy, Matt, you might want to read his next super chat. He sent something. Still talking shit about me, thinking.
Seven?
I have no problem with what he's saying. The only problem I have is with the characterization that he's dunking on me. Now that's stupid.
Instead of jumping to reductive conclusions, Matt Ping needs a jump on board with having heavy combo, Matt. Am I right? He's probably playing the angry drunk version of the Homer Simpson roll to be clever. I don't remember what the roll to be clever is. I wish I was better at the Simpsons.
Have you seen his hair? How can you compare him to Homer Simpson?
No sense to me.
He's got such good hair.
Right. Sure. I know, man. You can't be Homer Simpson. They got to pick someone with a full head of hair.
Also, to have the steadfastness of stating your perspective without being unnaturally antagonistic, I appreciate very much, because it allows us all to engage in this kind of conversation where we are in deep waters.
Yeah, contrarianism is divergence,
Yeah.
So that creates, interplay and makes this a fun show.
But Mark sounds to me kind of like a deontologist, the belief of consequentialism, virtue ethics, pragmatic ethics, duty, obligation, rule-based ethics. Do you believe in duty and obligation?
Well, I do believe that people think because if you do unselfish things and act in a way that benefits everybody around you as much as possible, that because that makes you happy, that's all of a sudden a selfish thing.
Right.
Right.
Like this is the kind of logic, like, okay, well, we can keep going down.
We're
this
all
road.
utilitarians, by the way. The whole idea of charity is also utilitarian. Trying to help, trying to do good, like thinking about how you're going to do the most good for the most people is also utilitarian. And I think it's just as corrupted a way of thinking. What would Jesus actually do? He'd stop at the first homeless guy he came to and deal with it. He wouldn't he wouldn't have time to entertain what's the best way to help the most people. You see what the first guy, and that's what you're doing right then. You know what I mean? So
yeah, but that guy would just go smoke crack.
Well, that's the other thing. So what about if you were going to give...
Thanks, Jesus. I'll be right back.
John the Baptist for sure would. But if you were going to give everyone everything you had until you died...
That's
also...
the balance thing. That's the balance thing, you know. But
that's
again,
that middle way, that middle path. That
I mean, like... Because, I mean, there's a lot of religions where that's the idea of enlightenment, right? You give away everything you have. You go sit under a tree and meditate all day. Like, it's a little bit of bullshit. You know, but if you want to me, it's as simple as this. If you want to be happy, and I think that's the goal for most people in life, to be happy, the least selfish you can be, the closer you can get to that kind of happy state of living. Doesn't mean you're not going to not be selfish. We're all fucking selfish. It's a battle we fucking deal with every day of our life. You know,
is selfishness though? It's what I keep coming up against, and forgive me, what I keep hearing is that selfishness is innately bad, is innately anti. Positive is negative.
No, it's a balance thing, man. Right? Like I said earlier, you don't want to just go and fucking go into an alley and just let people murder you and take all your shit. But
like it would be good to learn self-defense. It would be good to become a master of martial arts.
Self-preservation, so that you can be the tool of helping others.
Yeah.
Right? So what's Kant's 3 maxims? Act only according to that maxim by which you can also will that it would become a universal law. Act in such a way that you always treat humanity, whether in your own person or in the person of any other, never simply as a means, but always at the same time as an end. And every rational being must so act as if he were, through his maxim, always a legislating member in a universal kingdom of ends. So it's like, I guess he's saying, imagine that we're in a place where everyone's trying to do the best that they can, even though we're in nature. And it's not like that. And then also treat people as an end. But what do you think he means by treat people as an end instead of as a means? Means, obviously.
I don't know.
Don't use people, but like treat them as, you know, the thing you're giving to
themselves. Yeah.
In and of themselves. I mean, I think that Kant is right about a lot of things, but he's also kind of crazy because he has this idea that everyone else is going to be, you know, eventually they'll catch up with him and they'll all start behaving. And it's been a few centuries and they have.
And we all make our own complete individual universes and realities. Yeah.
A kingdom of ends. So he said that categorical kingdom of ends centers on the second and third formulation. These help to the basis. Considering a world in which all human beings are treated as ends, meaning treated as if they and their well-being are the goal, not simply means to an end for people. So yeah, trying to maximize the well-being of all people. You think
people are not resources, a means for your end; they are ends in and of themselves. Yeah.
So this is interesting because then a lot of the corporatism of the 20th century would make sense as a means to maximizing the potential of all people, right? Like you put an iPhone on everybody and they can communicate with each other. You give them Coca-Cola, there's sugar and caffeine. They can spend more time during the day, maximizing efficiency, right?
It also, you know, theoretically shortens their lifespan, rots their teeth, and brings them.
It also that saves us money.
Diabetes with every sip.
Gives money to corporations, you know, then they get them on CPAP machines and then they, you know, the whole thing, right? Save America with more money. So, I mean, but isn't that kind of, what is the idea of maximizing potential? And then do you think all people need does Jeffrey Dahmer need potential maximized, or like how far are we maximizing potential? And then what do we decide is each according to needs, what is good, what is chaos, what is order?
Well, it seems like Dahmer was treating people more as means than ends.
What is good and bad? So is it good or bad when a lion eats a zebra? The answer is yes, by the way.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's the thing. I mean, are we talking about nature and chaos wrong? Should we be talking about good and bad in a human perspective and then chaos and order in a natural perspective? Mm-hmm. Is it good for us and not necessarily good for the earth?
Right. Yeah. In the Bible, it says that the lamb and the wolf will lie down together and eat grass, you know, so an end to meat eating. But I think that's kind of like an immature take on what this is. I think some people want to would like to see that happen, you know, just like in the Instagram videos where the lion and the turtle are best friends, or you know what I mean? People have like weird pets that get along and stuff, and none of them are hungry. So the cat is cuddling with the bird and all this stuff. And I think some people want to nerf the world like that, but that's not the function of reality. Reality is not a peaceful place. Action is violent, you know, and this is a place of constant action because we're experiencing change through time. So to expect it to ever be peaceful, I mean, there's peaceful moments in it, you know, but those are a construct of all the preceding violence and action, and that'll take place before and after. So this is the way existence is. So far as we know, it's always been this way. There's no evidence that it used to be a totally peaceful place, or it ever will be, or that it should be, or that that's good, because that could be something like an inertia, or like, you know, just a lack of all energy and all action. To achieve total peace is like Thanos. You can just kill everyone and then you have total peace.
Right.
I guess that's dark side.
No, but I mean, it reiterates the earlier thought about harmony, new harmony, freedom, and license, right? Because you have this idea of freedom versus license. If there's some amount of freedom from sin that is kind of similar to freedom from crime, and so building a society where it's impossible to commit sin or impossible to commit crime, we take away all the meat off the shelves, and you can't hunt anymore, then that's, you know, problem solved, right? Then all of a sudden there's no more murder.
Assuming you built it by controlling other people, but if everyone has the same ends and the same amount of agency in it, people could just change their own behavior, and you wouldn't need any kind of authoritarianism or to ban anything. Like going back to the original topic of TikTok, should we ban TikTok? No, people should stop doing it of their own free will, which is difficult, but it's the only way to get the result that you want, which is healthy and sane people. Just banning
Andreas
the thing
said it really well.
isn't going to do it.
He said, make something better.
Yeah,
incentivize better.
Sure.
Andreas.
Too. We do need to make something better. Do you think that we're about to have, I mean, because we have these options. Like I know we talk about minds.com and all that stuff, but there are, you know, in terms of beyond just software, there are these communities that exist. Just it seems like we're not pushing for them because they don't have the inflammatory nature of, you know, like YouTube and Twitter are all about these kind of like, look at this, what's going on, you know, kind of a
open mouth videos do better. Yeah.
You know,
like TikTok got huge because it got put at the top of the App Store. Do you even trust that system? Like if Minds, you trust the system that Minds
great point.
Oh,
ever gonna get put at the top of the App Store?
I trust minds.com because I know Bill Ottman. I know the guy who made it.
No, I'm not saying you trust Minds. You trust
the
Apple
system that put it to the top, right? Yes.
Yeah, I don't trust Apple.
So it's kind of a fucked system at this point.
Yes. Can we go backwards and have no algorithms?
Yes. Can we just go back to 2008 and get rid of like never have smartphones?
Well, no, but now that we have them and it's ubiquitous, I mean,
Nokia.
soon it'll be inside of you. Then you want to. When you get rid of smartphones, it's going to be because the smartphone is going to be inside of you, and you will adopt that.
Inside of you, not inside of me.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, you will. You'll adopt that. You love what you do. You love the internet. You love making videos and stuff. All that's going to be inside.
You have to do that in
I mean, the thing also is, you remember 2006, 2007. There's a lot of Islamic radicalization on YouTube, and a lot of the algorithms were very useful to getting what you wanted, and so it led people further and further into what they were interested in. And you know, you could compare this to the flat Earth one, but the Islamic radicals were
like
worse.
videos.
I mean, so they were like, hey, we have to stop this from happening. I mean, it's one thing for flat earthers, but if you get a bunch of Islamic radicals all nationalized in Denmark and they start Euro jihad tourism, I mean, that's no good, right?
Yeah, I mean, how much was it really though? Go ahead, Mr. Douglas.
Well, just back to Andreas's point. What? Fine. Hey, look, the answer is not to suppress. The answer is then to incentivize the better. If there are going to be Islamic jihadists radicalizing, that's going to happen. So be it. You're never going to be able to get rid of all badness in the world. What you can do, however, is incentivize people to go, okay, I do see that there's this Islamic jihadist video over here, and I'm drawn to it. But hey, you know, there's also this video over here that's breaking down consciousness and this badass society that could happen if I just kind of chilled and found that balance between extremisms on either side.
Yeah, and it was probably very rare. I mean, it's like if you get like two people that happens to, the media is going to blow it up and act like, oh, everybody's being radicalized by these ISIS freaking videos.
There's
and it would have been if it wasn't
right there.
If it wasn't the ISIS videos, it would have been something else. They would have fucking
That's right.
To make everybody
who was
scared.
the September 11th American Islam jihadist? Remember they got this kid, I forget his story, but basically he was on the internet back in 2001 and he was learning about the Quran. And so I forget the whole story, but there were so many of these people that were uniting and meeting a bunch of people and were connecting these groups. And so really it seems like if you have comments on these jihad videos and you've got the Western Canadian Islamic kids commenting on, isn't it at some point you're going to make headway because just the amount of transparency to the issue, and they have options to see different kind of Islam. But the more it's segregated and isolated, the more you're seeing what they want you to see. You're probably going to get stuck in some of these smaller groups.
Yeah, it's true.
The more segregated and isolated it is, and the more that a corrupt system instills fear and small-mindedness and reactionary behavior. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like every time I read comments on BitChute, it's always talking about the Jews. Every comment is the Jews. Yeah. It's like Jesus is the only people on BitChute. They're just like obsessed with the Jews.
Oh, dude, it's the whole internet. It's insane.
Funny.
It's not the whole internet. I mean,
for me, it's everywhere I go.
You're the locust in BitChute. Yeah.
It's crazy looking at this article. We should seriously consider segregating the web from Wired magazine. And they're literally saying this on racial grounds. The early internet had a thriving ecosystem of sites that were made for the Black communities. Let's bring that back, right? So, I mean, there's talk about segregation, not just across states, but also the idea of creating segregation in our own communities, kind of re-amplifying and reinforcing this segregation that's based on kind of materialism of the nature of reality, which is not very metaverse, right?
It's also not true. Reality is not materialist. Sorry, I'm just
no, it's fair. It's corporeal.
We should go further and segregate by hair color and eye color and dick size. Let's just segregate. I
don't want to type ginger net because I'm really worried. But never mind. Don't type.
Yeah, we need our own ginger.
You there, 3 inches. You go to the middle of the country.
You just put yourself into the ginger verse, bro.
Oh my god!
We're gonna create a ginger paradise. I hate the term ginger.
I like ginger girls, man. You can send them into my corner of the internet.
Nope, you can't. Nope, there's no ginger mixing. None of that.
You gotta be careful.
There's already been some.
Can't kill you, but
too late. I've already entered the gingerverse.
The gingerverse. I like that, man. That's a good concept for a comic book right there.
Oh my god, it's coming. But okay,
everyone's got a slight Irish accent here. It feels great.
I've been to some places like that in South America. There's like whole states. They're just all redhead people. I think like 40 to 60% of all Earth has Gaelic DNA in it. So it could be, we could end up in a gingerverse in the future. But I also see, the collapsing birth rates and everything kind of related to the conversation of the family nucleus destruction. And do you think that we're going to see a point where people say, oh man, we really got to do something about this, and it won't be just fueled by the Catholic Church or, these Islamic state or something? It might be just family nucleus rebuilding.
Yes, and I do think that, I think that is already happening somewhat. I think there is pushback for people wanting to create a next generation for themselves so that they can instill values that they feel are being lost in the general society. You had talked about it that, after a little while, it's going to get to such a dire situation that we're just going to want to have babies every second we can because the human race is going to be in such a precarious situation as a whole.
Right. I mean, that's what scares me also, is it going to get to a point where we need the state because we've dropped the population so rapidly that they start pushing, okay, we're going to start producing babies as quickly as possible, No,
I'm sure the state would like that, but no, I don't.
Yeah, open the borders up and let people pour in. That's what their solution is.
That's what they're doing.
Well, here's an interesting question. People fear the extinction of the human race, but I mean, obviously some people have their idea about what a fair population is, but that's based on what's sustainable and resources being as they are. But why do people fear a contraction of the human race? Like, why is it necessarily a good thing we just have the maximum number of humans or minimum number, as long as it doesn't go extinct and it's no threat of going extinct? It could naturally contract due to natural situations or due to technological changes, or like it is now. But
look up population collapse.
Right. Yeah, but I'm saying, what if it doesn't collapse? What if it's just contracting somewhat? Is that bad?
Right, if we go in cycles. And I'm happy you brought up that idea.
Contracting because somebody's going around with murder wagons and murdering half the people. That's bad. But I'm just saying the population goes up and goes down in general, So
yeah.
Because you don't have anybody to take care of the older generation, and then you don't have enough people to. I mean, your economy is going to like basically crash. You're going to have a depression because you just don't have enough people to run it anymore.
But right now we have mostly young people. It's old people we're missing out on, even though we're going into. It's going to be different soon. But like if you look at Europe and the Middle East, it's like it's all young people.
But if that many people don't have kids at once, that's right. and all of a sudden there's not enough food to support the last generation, and so a bunch of people die. There's a feedback loop. So if it drops to
why? Because they're not there's no one farming it.
Right. I mean, so for instance, Rhodesia to Zimbabwe, there was a huge financial collapse, agricultural collapse, and then a population collapse. And, the same thing can happen anytime you decide you want to turn up the fertility rate, because you could also have people producing too many people to feed right away because the last generation wasn't there to make sure it's unless you've got some automated systems, which they have more and more automated systems. It's possible that those also break down because you need to have people that know how to run them, and we probably only have a generational training, so every 20 years there's probably like a window there where it's really easy for everything to just break down.
Like the 2.1 number is the number you need to avoid that, right? 2.1 average kids
per 2.5 is the sustainable replacement.
It says 2.1 replacement rate.
Yeah, but that's minimum rate.
Okay. I thought it was minimum.
I also I just have to interject. Sustainable based on information that we have now, based on technology that we have now. The human race is always growing, expanding, becoming better, or at least we have the potential to.
I mean, information is a stretch anyhow. I mean, we're looking at a chart and a graph and hearing on the news that either the world's overpopulated or it's going to be a population crash. You hear from other people like Musk or whatever. But I mean, all that the assumption based on that is any of this information is true at all. I mean, in your lived experience, is it like Vanilla Sky where there's no people around anywhere? Or
no, I know a lot of people that don't have kids that aren't even married. It is obviously a problem.
There is, especially in the millennial generation, and I think fear has had a big hand in that. Fear of societal, economic, and environmental collapse. I've heard that on countless occasions. Well, why would I bring a kid into this world? They're not going to be able to breathe in 9 years.
Fear is definitely a problem. Yeah, I was just asking anyhow. I don't know either way, but
you also have lost cultures because of this. So you think about the 50s, you had the beatniks, and a lot of beatniks didn't have kids, some did, but basically it collapsed the generation. Same thing with a lot of hippies. Some hippies had kids, but a lot of the guys that you think of as hippies that live today, they weren't necessarily actually hippies. They're probably, like liberal boomers that were adjacent to the actual hippies. Some of them, don't get me wrong, but
it's hard to be a beatnik, and beatniks are good. It's good to have people who are hyper artistic and stylized and experimenting with new lifestyles. You don't want everyone to do that at once, obviously, which is what you guys are saying, but it's good to have them. But it is, and it's good to have if women want to be a mother and they also want to try a career and stuff. It's just not very plausible. But what could really change what's plausible and make all this stuff a lot more sustainable is AI.
There's a lot of good. That's right.
Right. If we had functional AI and we had automated industry and stuff like that, I mean, it does free up a lot of time. And then people are so against like the universal basic income because, bye, Mark. Where'd you go?
You guys ever watch the Zeitgeist movie?
Anyways, what I was trying to say is, it occurred to me the other day, we have a huge problem. I'll do it quick. We have a huge problem right now with industrial spills. You know what I mean? Toxic spills and stuff like that. And it's like, why would you put the toxic plastic factory next to the school? Because the kids in the school have parents that work at the factory and they need to live near it. So all of our industrial toxic, waste sites are like right near where people are living because people have to go work there and they have to commute, and then their kids need a school. And then it's like, why is this runoff right by the farm? It's like, that's the reason why. But if we actually had automated industry and AI running a lot of stuff that people are running now, if we can make it through that transition, we could put all our toxic industry factories on Toxic Island, and build a dome over it and totally isolate it from and
build technology to scrub it so that it wouldn't be toxic for that long.
Right. Because I like punks and beatniks and stuff like that. I think I like art, and art is always kind of like oddballs for the most part. I mean, there's exceptions, but a lot of artists aren't breeders, and it would be cool if everyone we were talking about potential before. I mean, I think everyone has the potential to be an artist and to be a stay-at-home mom. So it's like, you could be both.
Absolutely.
It does seem though that every generation you have the most wild, interesting, artistic people are not the ones that are necessarily breeding,
Right. That's what I was saying. Maybe AI can change that.
Yeah. That is
You won't have
interesting.
you won't need the balance.
So
of time.
if AI does that, then that could really increase the rate of evolution, whatever we're calling it, just because there would be no
evolution.
There'd be no social reason to hold
there was
on
no
to
beatnik cavemen or like sustenance farmers in like year 4. You know what I mean? Like people were busy, so people have a lot more free time to do this kind of crap that's on the screen now. For better or for worse. And people are going to have more free time. There's going to be a universal basic income, and people are going to be careerless. And it's like, how do you want to maximize your potential is going to be a question everyone actually has to ask themselves.
Mark, what do you think about oh, go ahead.
Any of you have kids?
Not to your knowledge. No,
4 handsome dudes with no kids. So don't tell me there's no problem here.
Yeah, you're probably right. But we're the beatniks.
Right. Yeah. We're weirdos.
We're probably all too short. It's the problem. You go on Grindr and it's like, oh,
not
no.
that short.
I'm 5'8" on a good day, man. It's rough. Yeah.
I'm too short for internet dating. I'm 5'9", and on the internet, that's like 3 feet tall.
All of us ladies, we're all going for the same 6'2" rich dude with the Porsche in his photo.
Right. If you're can't you just get those things? Can't you just get those like lift things? They make these things, right? They go in your shoe.
You got dudes that did the
built into your foot, so you have a foot shape like that.
There you go. You put that in the back of your shoe. You stand on your tippy toes, and you'll be okay.
Listen, I did pretty good in my day. I'm 46 now, but I knew a lot of pretty ladies in my day. My
the thing when I was growing up,
height didn't stop me.
It was like the last thing you wanted to do was have a kid. Like you did everything you could not to have a kid. It's still kind of that way.
That's the thing. I feel like our generation really were like, don't have a kid. Oh my God. Like, don't get married. Like, they'll just eat you alive. Everything about it was just like way more afraid of kids and marriage than AIDS. You know what I mean? And I was pretty afraid of that too.
If you're a woman who, settles down and has kids, it's almost like looked down upon. It's like, you're just.
It's making a comeback now. You got
the right. There is pushback, but you're right.
I don't look down on it, but it did feel like, the people that had kids really young are the luckiest people now. So at the time I was like, oh man, it's too bad because you had kids when you were 16 and you probably wanted to wait till you're like 30. But now you're like, wow, you got it all done. You're like 30.
Well,
now.
you get to experience it with your kids.
Yeah,
you got to grow up with
you go to school and drop them off, and you go to school.
It is.
What'd you learn today? Me too.
They might be maximizing their potential that way, but for you guys, your potential might be something totally different that doesn't involve a family.
To your point, we are the more edges of the creative portions of society, the beatniks. Yeah.
I mean, child support is also a big problem with why I
also that. Right. I'm not going to do that.
All my black friends, man, they pay so much in child support. I don't know how they get by.
Rest in peace, DMX. But yeah, so you had all these priests also, this idea of becoming a priest. So you didn't have to get married. And I feel like that was, we have, you're talking about incels. Involuntary celibacy, right? And so,
is it involuntary though?
Well, maybe not, because it's not necessarily that you're celibate. It's just
how do we get on incels? How do we get to this topic?
Not having kids, people that aren't getting married, and the idea of priests. There used to be an entire place in society for people to go be obsessed with their art.
I think incels are a myth.
Okay,
expand. Yes,
anybody can find someone to fuck.
That's true.
Anybody can.
Put in a little effort. That's right.
Yeah, a little bit of effort. Go 2 weeks, go to a bar every fucking day. And eventually, maybe it'll take you a month if you're really funky looking. If your standards aren't retarded, all right. If your standards aren't, I gotta have a model chick, and you're going after a chick that's in your league. But a lot of these are dudes like in their basement. Oh, poor me, I can't get laid. Well, clean up, brush your teeth.
This kid was beautiful, right? Wasn't he? That was what he said about himself. I remember.
Yeah, but even he could have found somebody if he would have just maybe got outside of his own head and said, you know what? Maybe I need to
I think you hit it with the unrealistic standards. If you spend a lot of time on the internet, your standards are wildly skewed.
Yeah. Anybody can find. There's a lot of chicks out there that are just looking for attention.
Yeah, these incel guys are like, dude, I'm seeing the hottest girls ever. I'm not even attracted to like a 6. They're on the internet looking at 10s all day, and then they're like, I'm 5'4", I can't get a 10. And then so they don't want anything. It's a new phenomenon of people used to be locked into their local, however many people were in their town. Those are the girls you'd ever see in your life that weren't in like a catalog or a magazine or something. And it was like pick one of them. Pick one of these 100 girls. and that was it. So we're
now the chicks go on Tinder and they got find the richest dudes in the like.
It's not serving them either, though. It's
hypergamy is the thing. That's right.
Yeah,
that's
right. They're wasting their
their nature, though. It's their biology to do that, man. And you gave them the opportunity to be super.
We're gonna make it through this, but it's good that the human species is going through this, because the human species is going places. We've got philosophical thought, and we're self-evolving. We consciously and subconsciously guide our own evolution. So we're gonna go through everything, So it's exciting when you're going through a very bad time. It's like there's something good coming after it, like a renaissance.
I think
that's a great perspective.
We're going into idiocracy, is where we're going. That's in my opinion.
Temporarily, and that won't be everlasting. There will be something after it.
Was it Butts or Farts? What was the Academy Award winning movie? Was it Butts?
But we are going into a dark patch right now,
Yeah.
Hypergamy is interesting because it also gets into the idea of biology.
Hypergamy, thank you.
Yeah, well, I think you said that, right?
I said hypergamy. I mispronounced it.
Whatever.
Hypergamy.
Or hypergony, right? Which is the other way, which is just a feminine. But you're talking about evolution again, because it's women marrying men for higher social status is hypergamy. I think hypergamy is both, but it's either direction. So you have a status climb. But status climb also comes with it environment shift, environment change, biology is shifting because you have different gut fauna from different communities that's existing. So there's actual biological changes that happen. Also beyond that, you're having kids usually. So those kids are another consequence of genetic changes. So, I mean, isn't that kind of what society is all about? Or is this a horrible thing because it's not based on love? It's based on Jeff Bezos' wallet.
I don't really
Shouldn't Jeff Bezos get to marry whoever he wants to marry if he's got more money? So do the tens belong to Jeff Bezos or Epstein? Or is it money versus love, I guess, or biology?
It's there's
money infrastructure to help certain families evolve.
It's security, right? Like, can you protect me, right? If you got money, you can do all those things. You can hire a fucking military to protect. I mean, he can hire, like, if there's a woman he cares about, he could literally hire a military to protect her. So, like, that's probably pretty hot for the chicks out there. It's like, I can get my own armed security guards. So
these models, they can get you. So you get you're over 6'6" or 6 foot, whatever it is, and so then you're put into a certain class of people that interact only with politicians and billionaires or whatever, and so that helps certain families evolve, right? Because then they can make sure that they have the genes that they want or something. They're just buying women that are tall.
I mean, that's just biology, dude. It's just the way I don't think you can override that and tell women, "Hey, stop caring about guys being rich." Like,
I don't know if that's. I'm not saying to do that either, but isn't it interesting? So, what is?
Well, Jeff Bezos is an interesting one to pick because he's rich, but his genes are terrible.
I mean, yeah, I never.
So he's got his own. He's got a different mating strategy, which is totally valid. I mean, like it works.
Being rich is like the ultimate. Like nothing else matters.
Scott Adams.
You can be short, you can be fat, you can be ugly. If you're a billionaire, you're gonna have the pick. That's a lot. That's just
you're gonna do well.
That's a mating strategy. Yeah.
That's why every dude's like, "Hey, you're ugly, but if you can just get rich,
get that Lambo
away."
That's right.
Watson, Crick, genetics.
Absolutely.
I forget if
you don't even have to get that rich either.
That exists all throughout the animal kingdom. Cuttlefish have a beta male. There's a beta male of the males of the cuttlefish, which is like an octopus type thing, and they actually disguise themselves as females and go into a cluster of females, and then the male is above them, like in the ocean, and he's like having sex with all them, and the male is in there hiding with the females, having sex with the females. So half of the offspring from this big alpha cuttlefish are the beta genes.
The beta fish takes advantage of the
part of reality. It is what it is. It's not good or bad.
I mean, like, you look at a lot of
like, did Baphomet create the beta male, or a beta male's? Did
Watson
God create that?
Watson and Crick, they stole Rosalind Franklin's DNA and genetic model, and one of the things she talks about was that because of hypergamy, really what needed to happen was society needed to go through a socialist revolution of Marxism in order to get rid of the elite, which were manipulating people's free will and choice to breed. Because this woman might have married someone that she loved, but instead she's marrying for the preservation of her children, which is an absolutely reasonable reason to make decisions. But it's not necessarily based on your first passionate love at first sight, which there might be some divine genetic experience of
In
biology.
the animal kingdom, all the alphas have good genes, and they're also the ones that produce the most. In the human race, I mean, it's almost like inverted at this point, where a lot of the drive to become an elite is to overcome your bad genetics so that you have the mating option. So we almost have like betas that are alphas. Like, is Jeff Bezos a beta or an alpha? He looks like a beta. Genetically, he's a beta, but he's an alpha, and Bill Gates is an alpha. I mean, they're on the top of the heap, right?
Yeah, because it's more about intelligence for humans than it is about just like pure strength.
Not just intelligence, but a need to go another way. You can be very intelligent, but if you're also a 6'6" blonde Ubermensch, it might never occur to you that you need to become a billionaire or like rule the world, you know, because girls are already throwing themselves at you.
Yeah, that's true. But none of them are gonna. I mean, they might accidentally have your kid, but they'd rather have their kid with a guy that's got $1 billion in the bank.
But this also pulls into how beta males exist, because it might not be natural, but society is making sure that those are the kinds of persons that thrive in a society. You try not to hire someone who can get a job. You want to make sure it's an equal opportunity employer. Maybe you get a tax credit for hiring someone who isn't as
not short and ugly. There's no tax credit for that yet.
Do you identify as short and ugly? Prefer not to answer.
But if you're the kind of person who doesn't get a scholarship, then you're the kind of person that certain businesses are benefited by hiring, and certain apartments are benefited by being rented to, right? Section 8 housing, for instance. If you haven't economically succeeded in this community, you should live here.
Yeah, utilitarianism.
Yeah,
help everybody.
I mean, technology has completely changed the whole game. Like however long we've been here, we've been doing things one way, which is like, whoever's around, you pick who you're most compatible in your little village or your little town or your little neck of the woods. Now it's just completely changed the whole game. This online dating, it's changed.
Could it be that you're breeding people for all kinds of reasons? You breed beta males so that you have a subscription model for generations, right? You know that they're going to work to pay for their gizmos and keep renting their apartment. And you model their society around it.
You're always going to have, even if everybody was like 6'6", super athletic, there would still be the ones that are more athletic and more good looking. So it's all about like what's out there, so you're always going to have those that are lesser or lower on the ladder.
Why aren't we American gladiators by now? Why didn't they put something in the water besides fluoride? Why didn't this happen?
If you want to hear about a potential future crash of a population crash, make everyone 6'6" and beautiful, and then you won't have any pressure for betas to be creative and find new mating strategies. That might end the human species. See,
if everybody looked like that, if everybody looked like those American gladiators, the dude at the bottom with the receding hairline would be the beta.
Sure, he probably was.
You find other ways to like lower your value.
Right. So, but that guy probably is. That guy's probably the craftiest American gladiator. He's probably
he's the one that have to become a billionaire.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So I'm saying if you remove that impetus, that might be not so great for our potential ceiling might start to come down. If
he's got weird ears.
I was in Denmark.
Yeah, he's a weird ear one.
He might be the most well hung. You never know.
I went to Denmark and I bought a burrito. And so I'm going into this little restaurant, and there's like these beautiful, like, women and men, both of them. They're all beautiful. These Danish people that are working there. And there's no way to tip them even. And there's no music playing. And I realized, God, they're so freaking miserable because they're all beautiful. And this girl's ringing me up. She's like more beautiful than the last girl. And she's like rolling a burrito, and like she hates her life because she's just as beautiful as everybody else. It doesn't even matter. I don't think she even knows that she's beautiful, kind of a thing, which is what most people in the world are going through all the time. Yeah. But it just seemed really interesting to me, that idea of just, you can't be special for being beautiful. So being beautiful doesn't matter anymore because it really is only important because it's special. Right. And on that level, you might as well be a burn victim.
I don't think that's true. I think if you have a bunch of people that we all consider beautiful because they're prettier than us, they're just going to be different. There's still going to be people that they consider ugly that you would consider beautiful. Like there's this, I don't even want to mention names, but there's this popular Asian chick. In one of my videos.
I was with my ex-girlfriend, Mark.
In one of my videos, I listed her as being hot. And all these Asian people are like, she's not hot. Like to us Asians, she's actually ugly. But like to us Americans, like she's hot as hell because it's like a different standard. Like you get used to whatever's around, So there are always going to be ways to lower people's value.
We are also all individuals. We're also that within each and every person that we are going to have interests that differ. And so, that, like you were saying, there's this spectrum, and within that spectrum, people are going to have focused interests that are going to lead them one way or another to different people that may or may not be beautiful or burn victims compared to what others might consider.
Also, the panda. Remember, there was like that time they tried to get those pandas to mate, and like, what is he, gay? And he wasn't.
Ling
even gay.
Ling was not having it.
It just turned out she was an ugly panda. That was all it really came down to.
Well, for him, that's a good point you make, because everybody's got their own little interests. Like some people like fat chicks. I wish I did. My life would be so much easier if I like fat chicks.
Mark doesn't. Okay, it's all right.
Attracted. I wouldn't say not like.
Yeah,
attracted.
Exactly. I mean,
because I love all people, no matter how fat they are.
Always the fun person.
What about Stefan Kellen?
Yeah.
Fuck him. Thanks for the super chat, though, Stefan. Try to make more sense next time, though.
I want to do a battle with Steph and Mark's hair, because they both have really good hair.
No, there's no way.
No? He's got dreads, though. They're pretty cool. I don't know. All right. Looking at this idea, though, of building this world. So if we wanted to, we would have already done it. We would have already tried to build a superhuman world, right? And I think the Germans did that. Didn't work out very well or something. So what do you think about is it logical? Or are they trying to keep us down on purpose? Is that part of the deal? Instead of helping build us up, because they got to a point where they realized we're just powerful enough at 5'6" or whatever they decided?
Short answer, yes. Any power structure that's been designed by the few are going to want to keep everybody down below them so that they can exert power, influence, and control over them. That is how these power structures that we have existed in for a very long time, not just in recent history, they've all been set up this way. It's just been real effective recently.
Yeah. I argue that there's no benevolent reason to hide information from people. You know what I mean? That's like the Garden of Eden fallacy for me. Like the bad guy is the one that's like, don't have the knowledge. You know what I mean? So to hide information from people, I don't know a benevolent, reason you do that.
There's this guy in the chat who doesn't even know how to spell program. The program. I don't know. He don't know how to spell, obviously. But he says, you on YouTube crying about how you not got to grow. None of us have cried about how we not got to grow. Whether I have to grow or not is my business.
I cried before I came on YouTube to get it out of my system.
I'm pretty sure most of the guys on this panel have a chick.
Dude, I remember this one time I was eating Chinese food and I was watching
that roll.
And I was like, oh man, I'm gonna cry right now, huh? It was just because of Old Yeller. I think also what's weird is that humans are becoming more and more evolved to the aesthetic, which is we talked at one point, I don't know if we talked here, but about clown girls and how clown aesthetic is becoming a big thing. You know what I'm talking about. Moderate search, for the love of God, please be moderate. Yeah, basically. Clown aesthetic is like, and I think what it is that the less you have sensorial physical intimacy, the more you have an attraction and arousal to the aesthetic, right? Aesthetic, visual aesthetic.
What are we talking about now?
Well, the human evolution, right?
Individualizations, people seeking individualization in a world where you can
clown fetishes.
Yeah, I mean, right now it sounds like you're talking about the objectification of the female
Get your
form.
holy water out. It's fine.
But I think the reason people put stuff on their face in general is they're desperate to individualize it. They're seeing millions and millions of people on the internet. They're like, I've seen so many people with like a blue shirt and blonde hair, and like I'm one of them. I need to dye my hair. And then you've seen every hair color. Everyone's got every hair color. It's like now I need different weird makeup and different piercings. Now everyone has the piercings and the weird hair color. Now I need to literally be Harley Quinn and like a clown, and then probably something after that too. It's just
Make
desperate.
me special. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
My hope is that they would start to cultivate their essence and interior beyond the piercings and plugs that they think will
Do
differentiate.
you think it's interesting? I've never seen a hot clown girl in my life, but I'd be interested to learn more about that. I think it's interesting.
She's cute. She's cute.
She's just a cute clown. I'm about to get a clown.
One time I knew a really pretty girl that had new clown arts, and she had like a red nose and could juggle and everything.
Totally.
And I was like, this makes you 10 million times hotter.
Yeah, I actually known a lot of like in France.
You got skills, girl. You do private shows.
Yeah, girls that are clowns are a lot of times a little crazy though, but that's all right. I think that doesn't. I don't know if that's a full-on stereotype.
World,
the thing is that we're maybe evolving though to not be stronger, to not be interested in strength, and not to be interested in independence and autonomy. We're being evolved to like cuddly, soft, wide-eyed, cute, and maybe we're weakening ourselves by doing that. I don't know. That's my thought.
I certainly thinks that there are agendas out there purposefully trying to codify that kind of softness and dependency for sure. I find it interesting to come across women's reports of being on, and this is I've heard this in certain scientific discussions as well, because I frequent scientific discussions. But girls on birth control, they will be attracted to a certain less masculine styled man, and then when they leave birth control, that actually becomes somewhat abhorrent, and they tend towards a more extreme, classically hairy masculine dude.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, how could we move any direction except for softening ourselves? I mean, we started off like covered in hair, bashing each other in the head with rocks to like rape girls in public, you know. So it's like you got nowhere to go. You got nowhere to. That was like cavemen. You never watched the Clan of the Cave Bear. I'm not making it up. You ever seen how moose do their mating? The men headbutt each other to death and then rape the female. It's like every animal. So it's like humans are softening themselves.
Yeah,
you know,
as no vegetarians watched Animal Planet when they were kids.
The question is, can you soften yourself too much? I was saying I like the Pokemon Baphomet before, so maybe like, you know, you can soften yourself too much. But I think we talk about this all the time, like with AI, you know, like humanizing AI, personizing animals, making a bear into a teddy bear. And then you see when the needs are met, you can have a pet bear live in your house and it won't eat you and stuff like that. So there's a success strategy there, and there's no other direction to go in unless we just go back to like warlords, you know.
Well, I think there's a balance. I think that because we are as complex as we are, to lean so far in one or another direction is not ultimately going to serve us in the long term. Acknowledging, accepting, understanding, and surmounting the baser rapey instincts that some of us may have, like the moose. The moosin
and the
caveman, like moving beyond that, we have social structures now, but also understanding that, hey, to be an effective man means to step into that focused and controlled, mastered aggression. That's there. That's natural. That's good. You don't want to eliminate that. To eliminate that means you're leaving yourself open, like Mark, you were saying, to walking into an alley and going, "Kill me, please!" Like that's not helpful for society either.
I just think we need to ban women from going on the internet, and that'll solve everything.
Well, I was about to say these are my favorite shows, but anyway, Ping Trip probably doesn't recall being on stream with me the day before Xirtus posted the Owen Benjamin episode, all in the name of lively convo. Play the clown. It's true. You guys were on a video together. I forgot.
I don't remember.
Happened. Yeah, no.
Shout out to you, Stephen. Thank you for the super
I think
chat.
that's the point.
Your comment was a little weird to me. That's all. I'm allowed to have my opinion.
That's what I love about his comments, especially Based AF will comment and people would just be like, "What did he just say?"
Everyone's too nice. Everyone's too nice on Wednesday Ultra. Everyone's polite in the chat. We're all so nice to each other. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I don't know what I was doing, trying to target the Canadians. I need to get some more aggressive people involved. Well, also make sure you guys go to Ping Trip's YouTube channel so you can watch his new Alex Stein video, which is a lot longer than the 6 minutes you saw. It's actually 51 minutes longer than you think it is. And he's got the hat.
You're hiding your hair again, bro.
No, yeah, because this was back in like November, I think.
I think the hat's key. I think the hat's really cool. I like.
You got to rock with the hair. The hair is
masculine aesthetic. It's like it's a jungle out there, you know. And you're trying to really keep us safe, kind of a thing.
That hair volume makes you 6'6".
Yeah. I got to work on my posture though. Apparently, everybody's letting me know I got bad posture.
I think you just look like you're at the edge of your seat, excited to hear what Alex has to say.
I'm leaning in as a good interviewer does.
You're interested. That's right.
Look at Alex.
He looks like a judge, bro. Doesn't he look like a judge?
Wonder in his eye with his cardigan.
Yeah, he reminds me like Alex. For some reason, that whole thing we did that day, the documentary plus this, he could have easily played. Who's the character from The Office, the boss, Michael Scott?
Michael Scott.
He could. If there's another Office, he needs to play Michael Scott.
Oh my God, he could have been so many. Yeah, he could. Why didn't he just vote for Hillary? You've been famous.
He's been on Wednesday Ultra. Yeah.
Amazing.
Can't get him back now though. He's too big now.
No, I can still get him.
Yeah, it's just hard.
I want to do a rap song with him.
He's busy with his new show.
I'm so busy. I'll care to get people when I can. I think right now, I thought, if we could just get through Esoteric Eddie's presentation, it'd be almost impossible. And that was a month ago. But yeah, we'll keep trying to get more people. If you guys have other suggestions for people you want to get, I can get Alex again. We'll do that one more time. But go to Venice Beach Dub Club, VBDC.store, or Linktree VBDC, actually, if you want to get all of his links.
Yeah, go get a Science Denier shirt. And then people go, really? And you can go, I don't know. You'll never know.
Dude, truther. You can wear that on a jet plane. Also, watch the Hybrid Love music video, which is beautiful. and the Pure Bloods video and the Fundemic video. He's got a bunch of videos up that are really amazing.
A bunch of videos. More coming soon. Thank you everyone for the support. I'm in the studio, so I have nothing to put out anytime soon, but there will be a bunch of stuff coming at once soon.
Dude. And in the meantime, look at the puppy. Fundemic. Pretty amazing stuff. Also, MrDouglas.com with a 3 for the E, Mr. Douglas. And you can make sure that you listen to Ingo Swann's Secret to the Power of One, but also go to the official link because he's got it put out here and you can get it for your friends, I'm pretty sure. Right.
And I'm listening to it right now.
Yeah, there you go. Buy here.
You are awesome for listening to it. Awesome.
Audible.
Takes you right to Audible. That's right.
Amazingly, you can just download this right now. I mean, most people, if you've got a Prime, I think you get like a free 2 titles a month or something like that. Or I don't know how it works, but I
did have a hard time searching for it, I have to say. I had to put in the title of the book with the 1. When I put in Ingo Swann, his stuff came up, but this book wasn't there.
Dude, you got to put in Douglas Thornton, and then you'll find. Look at this.
Practical Reiki. But it's the same author spelled the same way. Why isn't it in his catalog? I don't get
I'm
it.
gonna listen to Practical Reiki read by you. That'll be like amazing. Wow, I'm excited.
4.5 stars. Was it?
Alice Langholt's pretty legit. She does break down Reiki really well. The idea is focused and assertive attention and intention, not quite the esoteric symbology and hand motions associated with the lineage of Reiki. People might disagree, but her breakdown of what Reiki is simple, palatable, and immediately useful.
I'm blown away. I didn't even know you got Warren Buffett, time agents, practical Reiki. This is crazy. Oh, it's amazing.
Before we go, I just want to say the word Tartaria. There we go.
Also, like and subscribe. Like and subscribe, everybody.
We have to talk about
smash that like
button.
button.
At least a little bit.
Mud
I know. I just have to say it one time. Boom.
Irradium.
I hope that,
we'll do it next week.
Baked and Awake better show up again so we can go deeper into Tartaria. I think tomorrow they wanted to talk about Tartaria as well. There's Tartaria Truths. Shem is on tomorrow, or unless we can also get him again if you guys want to do a conversation with him. But I love you all. Thank you for being there. Tartaria. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye. Bye, Chad.
Later, everybody.